Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth. I'm originally from the US. My husband Dario is from Italy, and together we're raising two small kids here in the Netherlands.
When we moved here 3 years ago, we really didn't know what to expect. I mean, we did a bit of research beforehand, but we also moved at the start of the COVID pandemic, so really all of that kind of just went out the window. I mean, we learned a lot from other YouTube channels by expats also living in the Netherlands, talking about the differences between cultures, recommended places to visit, some tips and tricks for moving here. But what we never saw was, the hustle and bustle of traveling and moving and dealing with small kids or finding places to go that are kid friendly here. So we created this channel to give you some insight into that missing gap, show you what it's like to live here in the Netherlands with an infant, to give birth here, to enroll your kids into the Dutch school system, and general integrate into Dutch culture with a little bit of flavor of your own. We're going to take you through a tour of a safari park in the Netherlands. Yep, you heard me right, a safari. Now, before you get your expectations too high, keep in mind we are talking about the Netherlands, a population of just over 17 million people, in a land area roughly the size of New Jersey or Massachusetts. Instead, think of Six Flags Safari Park, and then I think we'll be okay. The thing about this place is that they offer different ways to see and interact with the animals. Compared to a traditional zoo, which, by the way, is still a great experience for kids learning about animals, this safari offers a walking tour, a boat tour, a car tour, and even a bus tour for those that don't have a car.
Which I think is just a really cool advantage because the area is just so vast that you don't always get to catch the animals when you're walking by. If you have a car, you can cover more ground, and by boat, maybe you catch some animals hanging out by the water. Overall, giving a pretty well-rounded experience. Now, the first thing you see as you start the walking tour is a clan of apes, actually quite a few of them. And while for most places I've seen them only in glass enclosures, here it was actually really nice to see them in an open space. Continuing the tour, we saw some rhinos. The view was pretty decent. I mean, they still seem far away, but I don't think much changes from a car view. But we even managed to see some giraffes and zebras running around nearby, which was pretty cool. And actually, this is one of the times I'd say you could get a better view of the animals walking rather than through an auto safari, especially if the weather is bad and animals prefer shelter. Happened to be the case for us. Now, let's not forget one of the most important aspects of traveling with kids is ensuring that you have proper bathroom facilities to change the kids, to clothe them, etc. Now, I'd say in the Netherlands, this is quite normal, and most places will have child-friendly bathrooms. But this park actually had a designated area with multiple changing tables, which was really nice.
Whole family finished their bathroom stop, which, let's face it, is a necessity between any activity you do. To switch gears to an outdoor safari. Remember when I mentioned that sometimes you get a benefit of being really close to the animals driving, while in some cases you get a little bit too close and friendly that sometimes this can lead to a little bit of a detour.
This gets to the point where there's just a growing line of cars behind you, and you seem to be the one holding them up. Eventually, you get just enough space that you think you can pass, but lo and behold, your passenger seat driver starts freaking out and you have to back up again. But eventually they move, and then you get to continue on your safari. In general, the rules are fairly simple. Keep your windows closed, stick to the left, pass on the right. In reality, this isn't always practiced. I've seen people roll down their windows as animals passed. I've been stuck in traffic as people stopped on both sides. But I suppose this isn't the biggest deal, as really the point of the tour is to get up-close views of these animals, and sometimes you have to grab your chance when you can. I mean, all to entertain the little ones,
The
of
car
course,
ride,
right?
they say, takes around 45 minutes from start to finish, but I'd say we took around 30 minutes, including the stops. So perhaps it was just one of those days there wasn't as many animals around or as many cars, so it didn't take as long. But either way, I think it was a really nice experience. We also tried to take a boat tour, but that was closed when you arrived due to high waters. Womp womp. But it was getting late anyway, and recognizing that the walking tour took nearly an hour, and with an infant and a toddler, doing much more becomes quite ambitious. So anyway, once you're done with the park, you can always explore the area. Being that we don't own a car here, we always use car share, which usually has the option of both fuel and electric. For you Americans, including myself, that means automatic transmission. So we can always take advantage of driving around nearby cities and finding some grub before heading back. In this case, we explored a bit of Tilburg and found a nice little food hallen that satisfied our mixed cravings.
Now, before we conclude, I wanted to highlight some drawbacks of the trip. Firstly, as I mentioned before, the walking tour is quite long, especially with kids in tow. If you happen to have a wagon where you can easily load the kids on and off when they're tired, that would be a lifesaver. We just bought this one, so we weren't able to use it during the trip, but I can imagine how much more enjoyable the day would have been with it. I think in the US you probably have to check if they allow these wagons or charge extra for it, but here they're pretty liberal about allowing it, the same way they are about bringing your own food. Which brings me to my next point. You always need snacks. At the park, food is pretty accessible, but it's limited. If you don't like frikandels or other fried foods, you're probably better off bringing your own. Plus, it makes it easier to have on hand when hunger abounds. In terms of service offerings, I mentioned before that the boat tour wasn't running when I got there, which was a bummer. But I wish they had disclosed that type of information somewhere so you can plan for it better. They also offered this safari light show at night where animal figurines were lit up, but unfortunately it isn't very convenient to stick around at night with little kids' bedtimes. However, a plus is that you don't pay anything for children from ages 0 to 2, which I think makes sense since they don't get as much from it anyway. And they also sent me a 25% discount code after my trip, which is a nice incentive for planning another trip, perhaps even staying overnight at one of their many accommodations. Though probably a summer trip is better for that.
Overall, a day well spent. Even though we didn't get to see as many animals and some features weren't available, it really was a nice experience, and I'd rate it a 7 out of 10 for the little ones.